Hi, everybody. It is Amanda from Flow down in Irwin on Main Street. You might know me from Main Street. You might know me from Norwin as a substitute teacher. So we're all kind of going crazy right now because of the quarantine. And I said I would make a paper flower video because hopefully those will brighten up your day. It's been tough being stuck inside, but it's okay. If we all focus on it, we keep doing this, we won't have to do it for long. And that's the end goal, right? That's the light at the end of the tunnel. All right. So this is really simple. It's easy to do with your kids, but they struggle with putting together the flower at the end. And that's okay. Just take patience with it. I have one sheet of paper here. I have a glue stick, and I have a pair of scissors. And that's all that this really takes. Now you can have a second sheet of paper on hand if you want, because sometimes that helps by creating a bottom to your flower. I have a sheet of purple paper here that I will have on hand to show how to use that. All right, so if you watched the wisteria video, then you already know that chances are I'm gonna fold this paper in half, hamburger style. Okay. It doesn't have to be perfect, okay? The nice thing about this is you don't need a pattern, though if you want one, there are like millions on the internet. There's different types of flowers that they have on there. You can look on Pinterest. If we're friends on Facebook, you can look on my own Pinterest page, and there are a ton of flowers, probably under the title of things I want to make, actually. Anyway, I'm going to fold this in half. I'm going to fold it in half again. So I'm going to try to make a medium-sized flower with this. I think I'm going to have it be... I'm going to just fold it in half twice. It's been a while. I'm going to fold this... I'm going to cut this right down the middle. If you need help with that, you can fold it in half and then unfold it and use that fold line as your guide. I'm going to use this for the bigger petals, and these are going to be for the inside petals, which I'll probably end up making 3 different petals out of this sheet. I know that sounds weird, but I'll make it a little bit more obvious so that it's more understandable. With this one here, which I guess this is the best way to look at it, I am going to make a wide petal. You don't really even have to have it that wide. I'm going to make it relatively wide. So I'm just going to have basically a lumpy loop. It doesn't even have to be lumpy. That's just what I do to make it look more realistic. So this is going to be my outer petals. This will be one of my interior petals. Let's see here. How do I want to do this? This will be another interior petal. And then I can come onto this side and have these be the very last interior part of the flower. Now you can make centers to this. I'll probably just make the center with this remaining piece over here. So we'll just put a line like that. And I'll just know for myself that that's going to be my inner, outermost, second layer, third layer, and innermost layer of petals. So I'm going to take these both. I'm going to cut them. Again, if you need patterns, there are plenty online. Just look up paper flowers. There's probably some SVG files on there too for those of you that like your Cricuts and Cameos out there. I'm sure that there's some SVG files so that you don't even have to cut it yourself. You can just use your cardstock paper. Now, I find personally, I like using, this is just printer paper that's colored. Again, you can use white and your kids can color it with crayon, or you can color it with crayon or colored pencil or marker or paint or whatever you have on hand. Anything is fine. The point is that you're making art. And I will say that forever and ever. The point is that you are creating. It helps your brain. It expands your mind. It relaxes you. There are a million benefits to creating, whether it's doing art or writing or playing music. Just do it. All right, so I just cut a slit up the center there. It's about a 1/2 inch. You can make it longer if you want the petals to be like more stand-up-ish. I am going to, well, this has the pencil side on it, so I'll turn it around and you can just kind of bend your leaves back a little bit. What I like to do is put both of my thumbs in the middle. I brace it with my fingers on the back, and I just kind of push out like that. And then I kind of run them along the paper so that I get this curled edge. This is like 150 flowers practice, by the way. So don't feel like you have to be perfect on the first try. It might not happen. It might happen. You might get lucky. It's not like a difficult task to do, but everybody has different strengths. So with these petals, now that they are folded, I like to fold them first just because it's easier to do it then instead of waiting until after you glue. But you are going to take your glue stick and glue on one side of those flaps. And then I take this flap that isn't glued on and I lay it over top of the glue spot. So what it ends up doing is curling the petal and making it 3D, basically. Okay, so I'm gonna set this aside. I'm gonna glue these all when I take a pause, but we're just gonna cut these out here so you get the general idea of what we're doing here. Again, this does not have to be perfect by any means. I have these with wiggly lines because it would make it look more like a flower petal. You don't see a lot of straight lines in nature, if any. You definitely don't see 90-degree angles in nature, technically. So the same thing that we do with the bigger petals, we're going to do with the smaller ones or the, second layer ones, where we cut up the middle. And again, I'm going to set those aside. After I bend this, same way where I brace with my middle fingers on the back, thumbs on the front, and I bend backwards with my index finger and just kind of rock back and forth and kind of bend it to my will. All right, we'll set those aside, cut these out, and continue doing the same thing. All of these get the same treatment. We cut them out, we cut the slit up the middle, we bend them back, and then we glue them. Okay. Cut that. Now these ones, as they get smaller, it gets more difficult. I just do what I can. Set those aside. And then these ones here, since this is the fold, you can either cut that fold now before you cut it, or you can cut it after. I'm just going to cut it after. It's not a big deal either way. Okay. And whew. All right, I'll set that aside, even though we won't need that. I'm going to cut the slit already up the middle just a little bit. This is probably closer to 1/4 of an inch, maybe even 1/8 of an inch. I'm going to open up these two so that I can cut that seam there, and then we can just put them back on top of each other. With this, you could bend it if you want. If you don't want to, that's okay. I'm going to leave mine not bent backwards just because sometimes it's easier to work with the smaller petals without them being bent backwards. That's the only reason. And then we'll cut out this inside piece here. Okay, and I'm just going to set this aside. We'll talk about this in a little bit. Okay, so what I'm going to do for right now is I'm going to glue all of my petals so that they can be 3D like this. And then I will come back to you. Okay, I have all of these folded now. So I'm going to separate these into the 4 groups. There are 4 petals for each. I may or may not be able to use all 4 petals. I may or may not be able to use them all the way down to the small ones. I don't know yet. I play it by ear. You can force it to happen if you want, and that's also fine. Like, you could just like kind of shove them in there, and then it's like a nice little cluster in the middle, and it still looks realistic. So I did say that I was going to use another piece of paper for a center. So I'm going to show you both ways. I'm just going to cut this one out real quick. I'll start with a square. It is a different color. You can use the same color if you want. You can use a different color. Really, again, I'll say it forever and ever. The most important part is that you are creating. Okay, so I folded it in half just to make my circle creation easier. So I'm just cutting a half circle now out of this. It might not turn out to be a perfect circle, and honestly, I know it's not going to, but it's still gonna work. I guess it's not too bad. All right, so before I use this center, I wanna show you how I do it without the center, in case you don't have 2 sheets of paper, or in case you are impatient like I am and don't want to deal with it. And honestly, it's probably easier with the circle. I'm sure that it actually technically is. But how I do it without the circle is I will take one of the biggest leaves. I start on the petals. I take the biggest petals and I start on the outside first. So I am just putting a little bit of glue on one side of this. And then I take another outer petal, and I glue it on there. It's not going to be perfect. You know, it's going to be kind of overlapping, kind of tight, and that's okay. That's how it's supposed to be. I guess it is perfect in that sense. And then I would go around and continue where I'd put this one here, and then glue this one on where you want to glue this spot and this spot on this petal and tuck it into it, and then hold it all down until the glue sticks. I'm going to show you with this circle though, and since I don't have 2 different sets of petals made, I'm going to pull this apart gently so that we can use this, because I am a recycler. All right, so how you do it with the circle is it doesn't matter, excuse me, if it's not like a perfect circle. It doesn't matter if it's too big or too small. None of that really matters. I am going to glue my petals. Well, it does matter if it's too small, I should say that. But I'm going to glue my petals to the outside of this, and this one will have them be more spread out and not overlapped the way I do them when I don't use a base. The benefit to this is that it gives us more space on the inside to put more petals, or more layers of petals. The only real downside is that it takes up time cutting out a circle, and you don't get the cute overlap effect as much as you do whenever you're just doing them directly onto one another. I believe if you get any pattern online, it's going to have an inner circle to glue it to. So mine's always a little bit wonky whenever I do with an inner circle. Okay. Now, it was easy doing it that way. You can continue to glue inside here. Sometimes it's easier to glue on the bottom side of the next layer of petals. So I will glue on this side first, and I like to offset them so they cover up the seams of the previous. So you see it's on that seam there. And if it doesn't stick, then you'll know it's better to glue on the inside. This is sticking pretty good, so I think we're okay there. So I'll go on to the next one where I'm just going to glue as much of the bottom as I can, whatever I think is going to be touching that inner circle. If I didn't have that inner circle, I would have glued these just directly onto the petals themselves. Kind of like what I'm doing right now, but without so much leeway in the center there. Whoop. I'm good at dropping things. All right, and then this is the last one for this row. Okay. So you can see it's kind of getting there. Again, it's not perfect. This is about creating. And if you have a lot of these all together, nobody is going to point out that one looks wonky compared to the others. They're just going to be like, oh my gosh, look at all these beautiful paper flowers you have. All right, so I have 2 more rows to do. So I'm going to do the same thing that I did with the second layer of petals, where I'm going to continue gluing on the petal itself rather than inside, because it's getting a little tight squeeze in there for me. And again, I'm putting it to offset the other ones. Now, when you do get down this small, you're going to have a lot more space, especially whenever you use the center circle or the bottom circle, whatever I'm calling it today. But I'm going to try to cover up the seams again with this layer of petals in comparison to the last one, or in reference to, regards, whatever. I told you I'm awkward. Okay. Last one for this layer. Whoa. Okay. And then these tiny, tiny, tiny ones. And we may need a center, we may not. The center will really be up to you. I personally kind of don't like them because they're just such a pain. They're such a pain. But I'm doing the same thing that I did with all the other layers, where I am trying to put it along the seam of the previous layer. Now, obviously, you can still see purple in there. Bound to happen. If you have multiple colors of paper, you can use different colors of petals on the way in. You can use a different color center. I'm just kind of keeping it simple. Ooh. I have giant man hands, so this is a lot easier for pretty much everyone else in the world. Okay, and this is my last petal for that last layer. So, I mean, you could leave it just like this. That's fine. I'm gonna take one of these. So when we cut that extra piece off before it came in 2 layers, I'm gonna stick with one for now just because it's gonna be easier doing that. So there's a few different ways you can do it. You can either just make a little petal, which I'll show you on this one. This is something that I've done in the past, where I'll just cut a small piece, well, cut a small petal shape. Or it could be like that. And then if you wanted to cut it, and then you can just glue it in like that, so you're covering up that center. You can do that. I'm a cheater and I like to do that. The other option, what the internet would suggest, is taking that piece of paper, it's folded in half. They'd probably have you have one that's double this size. I'm gonna work with this because, like I said, I really don't like doing this. But I'm gonna, I don't like using the inside pieces. But I'm gonna cut pretty close to each other. So if you are a kid doing this, make sure that you are being very careful and watching where your fingers are and cutting slowly. So if you feel the scissors are getting too close to your skin, that you're not gonna cut yourself. Even I cut slowly as an adult because I'm cutting so close together. Or you can see if you have a parent available that can help you with this, or grandma or grandpa, or just whatever you do, be careful while you're working with scissors. Okay, so you can see now that we have, and if I turn this, you'll see it a little bit better. We have this like frilly, ruffly thing going on. From there, I'll set that aside. You can glue, well, first of all, I'm going to glue the inside so that it sticks together. Just along the bottom that's not cut. Okay, we'll glue that together. Something that you can do is that you can push these so that you get them to be puffier. I don't do it too much. Keep in mind, we're going to actually be rolling this, so that will make it bulkier. All right, so from here, I'm going to glue that again, and I am going to roll. However best you can roll. This is going like one at a time, which is definitely typical. And as it gets bigger and bigger, it'll pick up more, if that makes sense. And again, I'm rambling. All right, so I'm trying to keep it so that it's nice and flat on the bottom here too. That's important for when you go to glue it. Now, if you want a longer piece, if you wish that this was a thicker, wider center, once I'm done here, you can always add another row of that on. This is it. This is the end result. Let me glue that on tighter because it doesn't, must have dried out. Okay. There we go. And you can just, ooh, again, I'm good at dropping. You can just hold that down for a little bit so that it stays dry, or, you know, stays stuck on there and dries while it's on there. All right, so you can leave it like this, which is fine, or you can puff it up like this. which is what I like to do when I do the centers, just to give it more character. And then from here, if you had it turn out well, this is a rarity for me. I never have it actually line up, but I'm going to actually kind of just scrape some glue into this so that there's a lot of it, because it's really hard to get these narrow pieces to stick. And I'm going to take this and put it right into the center. Now it's fine that this is kind of all together. The main goal here, once it dries, I can puff it up again. The main goal is just making sure that it does stick in there, and I think I got enough glue on there that it worked. But anyway, this is your end result flower. So this is something that I think is fairly easy. You can see the back side has that circle on it. And you can make this centerpiece if you have yellow paper, or if you have only white paper, you can color it yellow. Whatever you need to do. And this is small. This is just one sheet of 8.5 by 11 paper, and you have 4 layers of petals plus an inside to it. So this is a small flower, but you can take the entire sheet and make whole petals out of the whole sheet and make a huge flower. You could try making a really tiny flower. I would say just challenge yourself and see what you can come up with. And again, if you go on to Pinterest or you just Google it, how to make paper flowers, if you need extra help after this video, you can find a lot of different styles of flowers. Some of them are going to be daisies, some are going to be sunflowers. You know, again, you can use your imagination, but this is the general gist on how to create something like this. And I think I'll make some more paper crafting videos because I like this. Anyway, so thank you for watching. If you liked it, please share it. I'm going to continue trying to make YouTube videos when I get the time to. You know, I work a number of different jobs, so this quarantine is helping with the YouTubing. Yeah, if you like it, share it, comment. If you made one and it's on my, you find this video on my Facebook page, I would love to see a picture of it. And that goes with any of the videos that I have. If you've made something because of the video, I would love to see it. If you made something that has nothing to do with anything that I've done, I'd love to see it because I love seeing people's creativity. I think of it as like a window to the soul. But anyway, I hope that this helps brighten your day and your quarantine, and I hope that this gives you something to do because I think it's going to be raining the next couple of days here. Anyway, stay safe, stay inside, stay healthy, stay hydrated, wash your hands. All right, bye.